Who are you as an architect, and how do you define yourself by what you do?
That's it's a very interesting question that one has to think of it. I think we oftenly don't necessarily see ourselves as something that we are, but rather how we can perform, in the best manner possible at achieving our goals. And I think it's as long as you have a goal set in mind, that goal starts to define who you are. And I don't know if it's possible to, or at least for me, to think of yourself as something in a very strict sense, right? And it's rather more of an evolutionary process. And I can say that I have been many things in the short time that I have been an architect. And I have experienced, as I'm originally coming from Romania, different scenes of architecture, coming from Romania, from a very similar environment to this one in Macedonia, in a sense. Not as exotic, I might say, but definitely interesting. Going to Vienna and studying there and also working there for a short while, and then in the UK, and with our practice doing buildings all around the world, you start refining the sense of what you are and who you are. And I think, well, just to cut the answer short, is I always try to find new ways of expressing myself and seeing what I resonate with and appropriating that to my own discourse, if that any that I try to evolve and define in the first place for myself, and then to try to apply it. So I think these all things being very abstract, I don't think that there is a clear answer that I can give to that, as you can imagine. So yes, I'm an architect that is trying to fit within his own time and try to, help improve myself for one, and then if by doing that I can help in any way participate actively in a contemporary discourse, then I am very happy to be part of it, and proud to be one of the few that work in a certain end of our profession in Zaha Hadid Architects.
Can you share with us your best experience or your best achievement in your work in transforming the environment or serving the interests of a community?
Well, it's very tough to say, because you never know if your project has had the impact that you think of it having beforehand, right? So I think it's very hard to judge, and one way that we're trying to, as a whole, as a group, as a body of people that think of architecture in a certain way, that take projects to the built environment in a certain manner and with a certain mindset. The best way that I think we are contributing to the contemporary discourse and to society as a whole, and to the way that we think about architecture and design, is actually through what I was just presenting, the research that we are doing and applying actively in the projects that we're doing. So I think that this kind of approach, research-driven design approach, I think is very important. And as architects, sorry about that. As architects, I think we need to be very conscientious about what we do. Maybe you want to start that? I think we should start that, because that you can cut, right?
Yeah.
You're not listening to me. Okay.
Му стигна поръка? Ке може да го преснимим ова е вториот одговор или? Do you want me to ask the question again?
Yeah, ask the question again.
Can you share with us your best experience or your best achievement in your work in transforming the environment or serving the interest of a community?
Right. So I think it's quite hard to understand if your project beforehand from the drawing table, if that will have the impact that you think of it having. And it's rather hard for us as architects to measure this because these things take a long time to have any effect on the built environment. But we also have tools at hand nowadays that can actually tell you or give you a hint of that being effective or not. And as I was just presenting, I think that this way of approach, research-driven design approach, is very important. It's very important because this is one way to give you a sense of certainty of what you want to achieve and if you're on the right track of achieving that. And this particular research project is particular in the sense that it uses data which is picked up and drawn in from the built environment, from the spaces that we already have, from our behavior within these spaces, from mapping the spaces and seeing how people move and use that space according to what they have at hand and what they want to achieve within that space. So by having this drawn in and put in as having it as an input for designing, this makes it an active design tool, right? And I think this is one way that one could influence, let's say, right, the built environment in a more responsible way. And in a more responsible way in a sense that it's predictable. And you could know what you're doing. So you can judge better if what you're doing suits your values and is what you want to do, right? So I think that's one way that we're trying to influence directly the built environment.
What is the power of architecture to change the world, and how can we increase this power to be much more efficient?
Well, I think that, architecture is not only physicality. And to think of architecture not only as a physical separation within the urban and built space in general, but that only shelters us as humans, and not only thinking of ourselves as being bodies just pushed through space and organized by physical objects. I think we need to think of ourselves as also sentient beings, which is the power of us understanding and putting value on what we see and how we guide ourselves within the built environment by or using the elements of architecture that surround us to guide and organize the things that we do around them and within them. And I think that is a very powerful and very delicate subject that architecture brings as a problematic. And I think we need to take power and responsibility and charge over that and design responsibly and realize that what you do might affect the people that are living within that and that are surrounding by it. And you cannot be irresponsible and just do whatever you feel like that particular day, but you should maybe fit within a certain logic that is empowered by a discourse which can be criticized, can be analyzed, and you let it run in different scenarios, in different venues, like different architecture schools, where you can test it, where you can have it filtered through the minds of young people who can go about and work on it. And that's, I mean, I think I'm kind of going all around in different places, but education is very important for architecture to have, to become more responsible, right? To be part of for us to be part of a community that actually makes sense, right? So I think that architecture's responsibility is far greater than what we imagine, and I think we need to be conscious about it.
How do you see the evolution of public interest in the future architecture?
Well, I mean, if we think about movies, people are always very excited about sci-fi and new things, right? So I think there is a general interest towards the new, but as well, I think what makes us pragmatic, so to say, is also our willingness to accept the new, but that's a general thing in our lives, in our particular situation. And I think that we as architects are responsible for knowing how to promote that and how to inspire people to actually want more from what they have, from their surroundings. And from my experience, I cannot really see, that there is a generality in how people see or express their need for new architectures. But one can also draw out, conclusion that general people are excited to see new things and are excited when new and beautiful architectures are presented to them, and whenever, if you would have the choice, you would always choose the better space than the worst one, right, to go into. And I think that if you give a choice, it's only natural to choose the better for the worse. But also, what is better and what is worse, and this is the balance that you need to find. And yes, definitely, that's it's tough to argue for, because it relies on values, on culture. Different cultures have different values. We think of things being beautiful from a certain point of view. Other people find other things that maybe for us are appalling, and these things to be nice and comfortable for them. And I think comfort is very important, because the new is not always comfortable, because the new means that you don't know, so it's an unknown, and an unknown is always uncomfortable for your own personal feelings, so it's a delicate way of looking at things, what is beautiful, what is not beautiful, what is important, what is not important. So I think it's our responsibility as architects to know how to inspire this need in people for the new, for evolution, right? Because we evolved as a species, we evolved as a society, so then we only naturally need to evolve architecturally to fit all of these new needs, because they're happening all around us and they're influencing us more and more because of our connective tissue that is more glued together, right? And we are interdependent, as one can see, right, with the examples of what's happening in China now. That's affecting everybody, right? And you soon realize that you're not anymore alone in a sparse corner of the world, but you need to be responsible and aware that you're part of a bigger community.
In this manner, in the era of augmented reality, of climate change, how do you see the future of architecture?
Well, I mean, these are all very different things. So definitely climate change is there. I mean, you see it every day, affecting you more and more. It's clear that you need to be responsible of how you employ and engage technology to help us avoid ways of building which are proven to affect that negatively. That's obvious. That for us belongs to more to the spectrum of engineering, which us as architects, we are only responsible for taking into account all the newest and the best practices and bring them into our projects, but there's not really much that we as architects, as an education, as an architectural education, can do about that actively, but rather more if you would, let's say, focus yourself on that particular kind of research, which I think, to be responsible, you cannot argue that you as an architect can solve that problem, but I think you need to be aware of the systems that exist and how you can employ them smartly in your building. But that's one aspect, right? And that's the technological aspect of it. But also, as I was presenting, there are other ways which you can be responsible and testing how you use the space that you design and how you can design it more efficiently. So you need less space, or you need the space to look in a certain way. So you cut away wastages, right? You cut away forgotten and corners in your building that will never be used, right? So that speaks to a savage of materials and so on, right? And also speaks to people working more efficiently. And when people obviously work more efficiently, they're more happy. It looks to their overall life achievement and happiness and so on. So I think there are many ways in which you can be responsible for how you design within the context that you have at hand, and that includes climate change and also one of the, so because you were saying that AR and AI and so on and all of these new things which come into play in our society, I just think that you need to use them wisely and obviously towards employing them towards solving whatever you have set for yourself as an architect, as a mindset, right? So if you have a certain project, then you need to employ all the things that you have at hand to deliver in the best way possible that project. And that's one thing that we are also integrating in our research, right? You have AI, which makes you more capable of simulating smarter the ways that we behave, the ways that we design. Then AR also helps you to put in practice more easily by seeing in real time what you need to build and actually building things on top of a virtual image, for example, right? That's augmented reality, which helps you very much in that sense. So I think that it's just great, right? Everything that comes as new, you just need to embrace and take it as it is, right? And then obviously, if you're talking about such a big problem as climate change, I mean, if the auto industry is capable of saying, look, okay, we're revenue generators and we have this great thing called petrol cars, which are bringing a lot of money, why would you change that? But then if they are capable of realizing that that's bad for everybody and that everybody might not exist because of that, then they're capable of changing, then we should also change, right? So I think we as a human race are probably going to have the need for survival, and ultimately maybe that comes before egos and our unwillingness to change.
What is your message to young people wishing to become architects?
There's not really much that one can say to that. I think that the best advice that I got was just do it. If you want to do it, just do it. But if you do it, you need to be responsible. And you need to be responsible to yourself, because if you're not, then you will struggle. And there's no need, because there's so many things which you can do in this society, and architecture is just one of them. So if you want to do it, just be informed and do it actively and do it with love and appropriate it to your own discourse. Try to have an idea about what you want to achieve and just use all that you have at hand to do it in the best way that you can. And always look for your peers and above and get your inspiration and always get charged and just do it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.